Hey, everybody, great Saturday to you. It is my pleasure to introduce again Hannah Hussein's professional, gorgeous female bodybuilder. However, Hannah has a story that I think everybody needs to hear. So, without any further ado, Hannah, welcome back. And as usual, you look beautiful. Glad you're here.
Thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Got it. What happened to you?
So it's kind of a long story, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if your listeners like follow female bodybuilding at all, or if I should go from the perspective of like nobody, like somebody that has no idea what it
Well, I'll help you out. They follow the constellation of content we put out, and that includes female bodybuilders, female muscle. Also, the keyword has to be just right. So that's so I really so I look at it this way: the audience, we get the audience by the keyword. So we
Okay.
get the keyword just right, we'll get you.
Okay.
And so, for example, for this, I'm going to have to adjust the later the field of keywords in YouTube because it has a default problem.
Mm.
Uh, and word to those who may not be initiated to that. If you have the wrong keywords, it can steer people in different directions like that, and the algorithm goes ah. And so rather than saying, "Hey, go to this just one thing," so I got to clear all that up later. But right now we've got four in here, which means I did something right.
Okay.
You know, so yeah, and it'll increase.
Okay.
Besides, I think the other something right is having you on because who could resist, right? So yeah, you have a great smile, you're everything. So yeah, perfect. But uh, with all candor, um, what you told me scared the heck out of me. What happened?
What I told you?
Yeah, about what happened to you.
Um, so well, it's actually I got pretty lucky with what happened. It could have been a lot worse. So I got my pro card in 2023. I stayed pretty healthy throughout that whole prep, um, and didn't have to lean super heavy into drugs and things like that, which obviously, it's not a secret that I've been on steroids since, I started competing, right? For people that follow, my very first coach put me on gear, you know, and a lot of it, which is where I initially had, voice change, things like that. So I've never been natural. I've never competed natural. But when I got my pro card, I was with a coach. I finally got with a coach that I'm still with that what didn't depend so heavily on gear usage, on steroid usage. We leaned more into training, um, basically everything we could because I personally um, I don't like having to do a lot of gear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've already had side effects that I'm not okay with, and I didn't want to continue to have side effects that I'm not okay with. So anyway, um, kind of getting ahead of myself, but
Hey, I'm curious. What you say side effects? Which kinds were you okay with and not okay with? I'm curious.
um, like I'm not okay with like more viralization, which means like my voice getting worse than it is now. I was not okay with the initial
You have a
change
Bond girl voice. It's okay.
things, but it's a lot different from my original one, So that was hard for me to deal with when it first started changing. And the coaches that I was with before the one I was with now, you know, my first coach told me, literally said, I would have no side effects. And so I trusted him. That was a long time ago. It's in the past. Um, but that was hard for me to deal with. There's other things like growth of things, which I'm actually way more okay with, because it makes certain things more fun. But like, okay,
I'm
if you
sorry. I didn't know what you're talking
just being honest, okay. I literally, I couldn't even find it before. So now everyone can find it and it makes things more fun. I'm just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but So if you follow female bodybuilding, you know what, the risks that it comes with. It can change your face. It can change everything about a female, because it's not, and androgens are not something we would normally be exposed to. We would never naturally have high testosterone. It's stuff we would never occur naturally. So there's changes, and the things that I'm not okay with is I'm not okay with my face changing. I'm not okay with essentially being more virilized than I am now. And so my whole 2023 prep, we really were reserved with what we did. Obviously, I was not natural, but I was on less stuff than I had been in the past with other coaches. So I was really happy with it. And then also throughout that prep, I was getting labs done. I was getting, and everything was coming back good. I never had any problems. And so I like getting my pro card, it gives you a high, right? I'm like, I've achieved this thing that I've been trying to achieve for years, and I got it. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to let off the gas. I want to push more.
Keep going. Yeah. You want to keep it going. Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I'm in a good spot. I don't feel like I've pushed my limit yet. I feel like I can keep going. And so I told my coach, I was like, okay, because he left it up to me. And I was like, I would like to push into this. I would like to, continue to push my limits. And so what we did was we changed my compound. So I was on 2 compounds when I got my my pro card during that prep. And they worked good for me, right? Like my hormones seemed to be good. My estrogen came back normal, within normal range, And so we decided to take one compound out that was kind of notorious for raising estrogen, which means you're a little more watery and a little more soft, right? And lean into this one compound that I have used before, but at the time I did not realize that it could tank your estrogen. And without having, and I'm not saying the names of these because 1, I don't want you to get demonetized, and 2, I don't want people to take this as, to then look up what it is and then use it, because obviously, like, we don't want that, right?
Right.
But just to be, like, I guess, like, just for the sake of this purpose, that I'm assuming people are not taking this as advice, that I'm just telling my story.
Sure. Right. Right. We're not saying, hey, folks, this is advice. We're just saying,
no, this
personal story.
But so we leaned heavily into this other one, and in my research of it was, okay, this was going to be a good choice to harden up and to put on more size, right? Which is what I still want, right? But what ended up happening was it completely tanked my estrogen.
Wow.
And I didn't know that. I wasn't expecting that to happen. And I also get my labs done every 6 months. And I wasn't really having any kind of feedback to say, hey, like, my strength is going up, obviously. I'm loving the gym. The gym is going great. And so I wasn't thinking that just this small change of what I was taking, because I've taken this before, it's not something that's new to me. Just when I was the ratio was just different. So anyway, time goes on, normal stuff. And I start noticing that I'm having like pain, like internal pain, right? And it would happen like at the gym randomly, kind of, and I'm like, it wasn't bad enough for me to really even say anything about it. And so time goes on, like a couple of weeks goes on, and it starts getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where I can't really ignore it.
Oh my Lord.
And so I'm like, I don't really know what this is, because it's not really a pain that I felt before. if I had to describe it, it kind of felt like, okay, like UTI pain, right? I've had a couple of those in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But it was different in the sense that, like, I've had probably 2 or 3 UTIs in my life, right? And that pain comes on and it stays and it just elevates, right? Um, this pain would come and go. Like it would flare up and it would be really painful and then it would just kind of go away.
Can you describe the pain?
Yeah, like, okay, you've probably never had a UTI because you're a guy, but for women, like, it's decently common. I've probably had like 3 in my lifetime before this. It felt like that, but with a little more pressure. So like burning, like internal burning, like the front of your stomach, lower stomach, it felt like burning and internal pressure.
Yeah,
And then,
guys get kind of urinary tract infection too.
I
But
know they can.
yeah,
It's not as common.
it happened to me once a long time ago, and yeah, it's a burn.
Yeah. And it's not comfortable.
No, no.
Yeah. So that's what it felt like, but it would come and go. So it would come on like while I was training. And that was what was like really frustrating for me is like this pain would come on while I was training and like really mess with my workout because I'm like in pain, not knowing what's going on. And so I finally go to my doctor. They, do a urinalysis, stuff like that. And my white blood cells could keep coming up out of range, right? Like, tons of white blood cells. But
that's not good.
No.
No.
But no bacteria. So it was like my body was like inflamed. And that went on, couldn't really figure out. And then they prescribed me antibiotics because they were like, oh, well, it could be a UTI. So as a precaution, we're going to give you antibiotics. And so I kept going back with the same symptoms, my white blood cell count high, but like usually no infection. And so they sent me to a specialist, and the specialist does a ton of tests. I did a CT scan. I did a scope that they put a camera like inside you that was very uncomfortable. They did a couple other things, tons of urinalysis, and they couldn't find anything. But what they did find was that my estrogen was super, super low, like under 15, which my estrogen has never been that low before. Like I have years of labs, it's always been, during prep, obviously it would get a little bit lower because of compound use, things like that, low body fat, but it never tanked like that. Like it never been under like 50. And then when I got my labs back during this time, it was under 15, which is like
15.
Yeah.
1.5.
1.5.
Wow.
And so
wow.
at this point where I'm like, I go to a specialist, I'm in pain every single day. Like
I looked that up and it says estrogen levels under 15 are generally considered low, especially for premenopausal women.
Mm-hmm.
This level is often associated with postmenopausal status or conditions like ovarian failure, anorexia, or rapid weight loss, and so on. So yeah, it's serious territory, folks.
Yeah. And so at this point, I was in severe pain every single day. It was absolutely miserable. It made everything hard. It made training hard. It made my job hard. It was miserable. Not wish it on anybody. But so long story short, and I went through this for a year, right? It took a year for me to start finally feeling better. My coach and the urologist I went to theorized because they couldn't find anything wrong with me. They couldn't find any kind of, but at this point, the only thing they did find in the CT scans was that my bladder and like kidneys and surrounding tissue was inflamed. Not severely, it was inflamed.
Wow.
And so my urologist.
That happened to me, but I had endocarditis.
What is that?
It's where the muscle around the heart becomes inflamed. And and I thought it was I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
That happened back in 1992.
What was that caused by?
Basically stress.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, stress. Yeah, psychological stress.
I did not know that could happen. That's kind of terrifying.
Neither did I.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in the ambulance, and the doctor said, you know what I think this is? Here, he gave me a number for a therapist. It actually worked. Actually helped.
Really?
Yeah, for what was going on there, the stress, um, the way I'm wired, I can affect myself that way.
Yeah.
But so that was in my case. That's what was going on.
I mean, I was also stressed out during this period, so I mean that didn't help. But the consensus was that I had tanked my estrogen using the type of gear that I was using, thinking that. But the reason why I used what I was using, because I thought it was a safer option. But it wasn't.
Can you elaborate regarding the gear? What we were.
So it's a compound called primobolan.
I've heard of that. Okay, yeah.
And it's supposed to be, at least from what I had researched and kind of read and talked to people about too. Like, and this is the crazy part about this kind of stuff. This is what is fascinating, but also frustrating with bodybuilding, is it affects everybody differently. Because I have female friends that also bodybuild at high levels that can use Primo and Primo alone at high dosages and have zero problems.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the reason why it hadn't tanked like that before is because I was also on a compound called NPP, which is a nandrolone, which is a progesterone base. So I think that is what was keeping my estrogen from tanking. And then when I took that out, trying to drop water weight and harden up and just lean into Primo, that's when my estrogen tanked. That's my theory. But like I said, I also have, I have a friend, she's a female bodybuilder, and I asked her, I was like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what is your estrogen usually run when you get your labs? And she was like, oh, like in the 20s.
Huh.
And I was like, and you don't feel like trash? And she was like, no, I feel fine. I'm like, okay, my body does not like to be under 50. Like 50 and above is where it operates the best. So that's frustrating to me, because it's like you can't even take advice from like your idols, because the drugs are not going to affect you the same way.
Yeah, because I was thinking, if I may ask, I was thinking like Blake Leotelica has huge arms. And I don't know if you know her or not, but I think she's around your age area. She's in Alabama, but her, I can bring her up here. You can see, for what she would look like if I can find that. Ortega. Yeah, there it is. Blake Lee, right here. Oh, perfect. Whoops. Okay, let me try this. What happened there? Let's see here. Okay. Right here. If I can put that, share screen there. No, that was the wrong one. This one. There. Okay. About.
Oh, I've seen her.
Yeah. So that's what I was saying. That's, and her voice, I don't recall. No, her voice isn't particularly noticeably. It's about your range, somewhere in there. So I was wondering if maybe you had known her or something, or asked her.
I've definitely seen her online, but she's not somebody that I've talked to about this.
Okay. No.
Cool. Yeah, it's an example of it. This kind of stuff affecting everybody differently.
Yeah. Wow. So you have to basically build your own model and your own treatment.
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
Like, how did I treat it?
Yeah. How did you come to your time lister? How did you come to that point where you're sounds like right now you're kind of feeling your way and you're discovering, hey, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
But then you eventually get to that point where it did work. What happened? How did you get to that point? What happened?
Well, so this, the pain that I was in and the problems I was having basically put a stop to everything that I was doing. I had to pull back on everything. I tried my best not to pull back on training because I was in pain. And unfortunately, it did affect my training because I was in pain every day. But
Wow.
um, so my doctor, the specialist that I was seeing, he was totally against me taking anything, any kind of steroids. He was like, you should stop bodybuilding completely, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. But that was his opinion. Is that he was like, my theory is, because I was honest with what I was taking. He was like, you've tanked your estrogen basically to a premenopausal woman or a premenopausal woman or a postmenopausal woman. That's how tanked your estrogen is. Of course, it's going to cause you problems at this age.
Mm.
So the remedy to that was just getting off everything and letting my estrogen come back up, which it has. It is now in like it runs between 50 to 100. Like for me, for women, it fluctuates. But since I've been off everything, it's been 50 and above. Started having a menstrual cycle again, which is amazing. It'd been a couple years since that, which is like a big deal. It sucked, but it is what it is. It means my body's healthy, and I have not been in pain since my estrogen has been back to normal. I've not been in pain.
Nice.
So the running theory is correct, in my opinion. That the only issues that I'm having now is because and this is why low estrogen can cause pain like that, is because he said that it can thin the tissue and it can make it to where anything irritates it. And so now I can't eat spicy food because I'll have a flare up.
Oh my! It's almost like sounds like colitis or something.
um
My mom had that problem. She has colitis,
yeah.
but she's cured from it for the most part, remarkably so considering her age. But
The flare up is just pain. Like it doesn't cause any like gastrointestinal issues, anything like that.
mm-hmm.
It just feels like pressure and pain, and it's not even nearly as bad as what I was dealing with every day. Now it's like okay, the other day I went out to eat with my sister and she got spicy edamame and I tried some, and it just made me like an hour later I just felt like a little bit of pressure in my lower abs. That's all it really does. I don't like spicy food anyway, so it's not a big deal.
What kind of food do you like?
Italian food, Arabic food.
Yeah.
Really anything. I don't like Mexican food and I don't like spicy things.
Yeah.
It's literally the only food that I don't like. But
so does this mean you're swearing off steroids and going more natural, or
absolutely not. No, because I've done gear for years and not had problems. But I didn't just lean into one compound. So going forward, I probably am going to be more reserved. And also another thing is I've been off of gear for about 6 months now, and I haven't really dropped any weight. Like I've softened up a bit. But muscular wise, like I'm still able to hit PRs in the gym. Like I'm still able to go up in strength.
Wow.
I will be.
What's your PR for your bench press?
I haven't like flat benched in a while. But the Smith machine 215.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
For being off of gear, that's pretty good in my opinion. I don't know. I'll take it, but obviously at the highest level, if I want to compete at the highest level, which will be when I, the next time I compete, it's going to be my pro debut. So
Mm-hmm.
can't be natural for that. I am going to be smarter about what I use though. So that's going to entail getting my labs done more frequently than I have been to make sure my estrogen is not tanking again. Doing more research on the drugs that I am going to be taking, which I'll probably go back once I start another cycle. I'll probably go back to NPP because that did so well for me, and I never had these kinds of issues with it. Getting back on TRT, which it is still gear, right? I'm not going to say that being on TRT you're natural. It's still gear. For the past couple of weeks, I've slowly added that back in at like 8 milligrams a week, which it was actually doctor prescribed to me because my natural testosterone runs so low. The first time I got my labs done ever, my testosterone was a 7.
Wow.
That's how my body runs.
Wow.
Very, very estrogen dominant.
Wow.
And so I've been prescribed testosterone for years by doctors. But I have gotten back to that in the past couple of weeks. Before that, I was off. I was even off of that. And that in itself was a little bit miserable because hormone fluctuations can affect you mentally. And then obviously my physique softening up wasn't a great thing for me mentally. But
That's what I saw your mention that you're saying you weren't used to essentially being soft like that per se, right?
I mean, I've been soft in off seasons before, but it was a little bit different because this time it felt like I wasn't given a choice.
Mm. You had to do it against your will, basically.
Yeah, and I was worried that depending on what was causing my pain, because it was unbearable. The pain
Wow.
for me was absolutely unbearable. It was not livable to me.
I'm sorry. That really. Oh, wow.
It was not fun. And so there was a period of time where I thought I was going to have to stop bodybuilding. I didn't want to, but I was like, there's no way. If bodybuilding means I have to live in this kind of pain, I can't do it. And that's about the only thing that would get me to stop. So there was a period of time where I was like, am I going to have to stop bodybuilding? Because I can't just muscle through this pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can get through a lot of stuff. I don't have a low pain tolerance. That kind of pain was so unbearable to me. And I don't know if it's just the way I'm wired, but it was not livable.
Oh my gosh.
I was prescribed pain medication and stuff to get me through it because I had to until my tissue started healing. And now I haven't had to take it on a regular basis in the past probably a couple months, which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
After the year that I've had, the year of being in pain every day is a big deal.
Hannah, something occurs to me. You'd think that for as many decades as female bodybuilding has been around, it's not new anymore. That there would be a book that someone could have forwarded to you to, or you could find in a library or online about, well, for lack of a better term, the female bodybuilders Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because this isn't exclusive to me. I've talked to a couple of people. I'm not going to say their names,
Right?
because it's their business.
Sure, absolutely.
But there's other women that have had issues like me. There's another woman that out there that, well, okay, I will say Hunter Henderson because she's open about it. When she lifts, she pees herself. That is a low estrogen thing. That is a unless it has to do with her pelvic floor, which I mean could be the case. I've not personally talked to her, but she's open about it. She's been on YouTube talking about how she has urinary incontinence. That can come from chronically low estrogen. That's another thing that can happen.
Does she wear something specially to knowing that can happen? Then I would think, or well, that's really horrible.
That I don't know. Like I said, I haven't. She's not someone I've personally talked to. I just know she's been open about it, about her issue.
Yeah.
I don't think she's explained exactly, why she's having that. But to her, she's living with it, right? She's not pulling back. To me, like, and maybe she's not in pain. Maybe it's affecting her in another way. But there is one girl that I've talked to. She's been to the Olympia, and she's now disappeared, but because she's having severe pain.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so this is not exclusive to me. I feel like a lot of us just don't talk about it, you know. And some women get lucky and they don't really have any issues. Like my other friend, that she can operate at, estrogen at a 20 and feel fine. That's,
See, and I'm thinking that it would be great to have a real women's bodybuilding federation where you could get financial aid to deal with this, because depending on your health care situation, it could be a quasi costly matter, or if you have the right health care or not.
yeah.
And what about that? Is it because you're inside there? Are there enough resources for what you're doing? Because I remember when I first became a fan of female bodybuilding, and that was, wow, way back in 1998. Yeah, 1998. Actually, technically, I became a fan when I was 14.
Oh,
Yeah, that was the first time I saw a picture of a woman in a magazine called Women's Physique World on a newsstand.
mm,
And then I hit college, and by the time I hit college, um, I remember there was a gymnast I was hot for named Terry Real, and that cemented. Yeah, actually, it was no. Actually, no, it was a cheerleader at Skyline who had the same. But yeah, so those two things. I can go on and keep going, but um, there was form there,
mm,
and but by 1982, in my sophomore year, it had been cemented. Boom, that was it.
yeah.
Uh, you know, yeah. So my point is, there's been enough time for people like Steve Winterstrom or Lisa Lyon or Rachel McGlish to at least form some sort of organization. Not that I would know about it, but how is it there for you now? Do you feel like there are enough resources for you to be able to confidently go through these problems and say, "Oh, I'll just call this hotline"?
Um, no, because I really don't think there's no resources out there at all that I know of.
Wow.
But I don't even know if there's resources for the men, and the men have a bigger following than the women do.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
And
Uh,
that's a growth industry. That's something for somebody to do, you
I
know? I mean,
wouldn't even know you know, how that would work, to be honest. Like,
hmm.
because on the female side, there's barely um, any reward money at the top levels. So
Yeah, and it's still, to me, I said this way back when Gene Huang and James Cook had FT Video, and I said women's bodybuilding is a $5 billion industry. Everybody laughed at me, and I said, well, think about it. You guys are online. You're looking at these women, right? You're
mm,
spending out money. Have you ever calculated what that adds up to on top of everything else? That's a shit, excuse my language, ton of money, you
yeah,
know? And if you steer it right, it could benefit them. And I think then later Steve had contests online with the idea of making money for you all,
mm,
and it worked. It wasn't sustained. It wasn't There was no organizational edict to sustain it,
yeah,
right? And it should have been. Um, because I've always felt, this is just me, I always felt it was kind of weird that male bodybuilders made more money than women, and yet men and women get looked at more. I think that's something wrong with that. Uh, Big time. So it's out there to be had. It's just somebody needs to put it together. And my thing is, if it's me, sometimes I realized this when I was helping women rowers in Cal, I mean, not at Cal, but at Oakland, because they wanted to do something at Lake Merritt, and I was working for the mayor. But they had their own little group, and I wasn't the best person to work with from how they treated me, not the verse. And it was very, we eventually got it done, but it took some soul searching and some honest talk along the lines of, hey, I can't help who I am, but I'm a fan. I'm here, and here's what I can do. And it was such a roadblock. I just decided I would never do something like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe that's why it's not happening. So there's some reason why these resources are not being created. And that was when I had this what I'm telling you about. This was before the internet, okay? And even though I look like I'm 26, the whole point, I've been around. I don't hate saying that, but the whole point is that it's disheartening to know that it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
In decades. It's kind of like, what? It's crazy. Because you shouldn't have to go through what you've gone through and not have a hotline to call or a website to go to. Okay. And I guess the question is, what would that website look like? It would look like videos of tips, videos of examples of women going through these things, how they've solved it, a clearinghouse. It would look like medicines that you have access to, maybe as an affiliate program or something. You can go and get that. You buy it online, right?
Yeah.
Boom, there it is.
I mean, in a perfect world, I can agree with that. I don't know. I guess that's kind of why I even posted and being transparent about it. Because when I was looking for stuff online, to try to figure out what was causing me this pain when my doctors couldn't figure it out. And, doing the things that I do for bodybuilding, it changes what I'm looking for, because I'm not just an average person that's going and having, this pain that would probably be explainable otherwise. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was nothing out there. Even when you search the hashtags, for female bodybuilding, health, things like that, nothing really comes up. So what I ended up doing was talking to people like, that were also female bodybuilders, and asked, just being, hey, have you experienced something? Like, I'm just being transparent with you here. Like, I'm dealing with this thing, and I'm wondering, I was just want to know if you've ever dealt with anything like this, and some of them were very receptive. Like I said, I'm not going to say names because it's, their business, but some of them were really helpful and were honest and like, yes, it wasn't exactly what I was going through, but similar things. Some of it worse, in my opinion. I feel like this was a more even though the pain itself was pretty rough for me, it could have been worse, because I talked to people that have had heart attacks in their 30s, so I would take that, this over something like that. But, at the very least, I would like to create a movement where we're honest about what actually we go through when we do this stuff,
I'd like to help with that. I can help, if only just to talk it up.
Yeah.
Because that's needed. And as a fan, and I keep saying, it's a way. I'm just brainstorming some ideas of ways that could be financed pretty quickly. But I think more important is to just build the site. Because off the top,
it could just be in a website with information on it.
Yeah.
Because you also have to think, I do take responsibility for this, right? It's not, nobody held a gun to my head and said, hey, take this. you know, I wanted to do good in my sport, and I still do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to want it. And, you know, you could argue that, you know, like you're doing this to yourself, which I absolutely did, you know, but I do think there should be more because we're going to do it, right? Yeah. Bodybuilding's not going anywhere. It's just getting bigger.
But, you know, you put a finger on something else too. I mean, you shouldn't be shamed for being, that shouldn't be a shame point anyway. It should be part of a recognized sport that should be in the Olympics, if it's not already for women. But and when I say that, I'm responding to these scenes of guys without using their names making fun of women on Instagram, and that's why I post the opposite. Hey, you're looking great. Hey, that because I don't want to read about somebody um, doing something against themselves, if you will,
Yeah.
because they get these messages and they get bullied from guys who feel like they've got nothing better to do than that.
You know, the guys get it too. The guys get
Yeah.
it. Too. I remember seeing a post about a male bodybuilder that had pulled out of a show because of mental health, and he was being transparent about it. And the comments were just destroying him. Like, oh, what do you have to be depressed about? All you have to do is eat and train. And
Oh wow.
And people don't realize that manipulating your hormones, it messes with your thoughts. It messes with your brain chemistry. It can literally make you depressed. You know, you take any hormone, your thyroid, your testosterone, your estrogen, you're going to feel depressed. You're legitimately going to feel depressed. And so, like, I see the guys get it too. And it sucks. And then, you know, you have the people that make the argument of, well, you know, they don't have empathy because, you know, I don't have empathy for somebody who does drugs. Okay, that's fine. Like, I also understand that perspective, as shitty as it sounds. Like, but it's like, to me, this has been my passion since before I even knew the industry existed. You know, I've loved bodybuilding since before I even knew stepping on stage was a thing. And so for me, it's not about that. And so I can empathize with the athletes that it speaks deeply to them, you know? And some people would be like, oh, well, if I had those kind of problems or whatever, I would just give up. Like, I've had people say, like, my doctor was like, is it really worth your health? And I'm like, kind of. You know, yes and no. I'm not gonna, obviously there's a ceiling, right? For me, there's a ceiling. But
sounds like you have the wrong doctor. Just saying. You know.
We came to an understanding, and he's actually a great doctor. He's actually really
good. Okay.
That's all I care about. He doesn't have to like what I do or like approve of it. As long as you're a good doctor, fine. And he's the best in the area, so I suck it up. We actually banter now. It's kind of funny. But, you know, to me, it's like, okay, I've done a lot of things wrong in this sport, a lot of things. And so to me, it's another learning curve. I tried this way. I tried, you know, doing something that didn't work. I'm going to go another avenue. I'm just going to find a detour to get to where I want to get, you know? So
I get back to the idea. I did think it takes a website, but I was also thinking it would be good to be able to have within that website a place where you can connect with somebody if you wanted to have a one-on-one in a portal, you know. Yeah. And I was thinking, you say, how do you set up a portal? Well, Jitsi is a very cheap Japanese produced live stream website. You stick it on your website. It's two-way. It's like a mirror. It's weird, but it's cool. I experimented with it. It cost no cost, so it's something like that where it would just be the two of you, and someone would actually have to know where that page was to even find it, right? And but it doesn't save the image, and it doesn't save the recording. It doesn't save a recording, so it's a true two-way.
Okay.
So and yeah, I was going to use it for my site, but my site was public, and I didn't want somebody coming in like inappropriately dressed, and which you could do with like 10 people on the camera. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, what's that? And you can block it.
Yeah.
But when you're talking one on one about a problem, that's less likely to happen because you're there because you have an issue, and the person on the other end is assigned to you because they're assigned to talk to you, which means so that's a perfect environment for that software. My point is, this thing can be built quickly, cheaply, and efficiently. The site, yeah, it could
I've
call it Hannah's place.
the what?
Call it Hannah's place.
Yeah, I like it.
Hey, my site is, yeah. Start a nonprofit company called Hannah's Place.
Mm-hmm.
There's something there. I think there's something there. I really do.
At the very least, I was gonna, eventually document what I went through to, just have it out there. Someone coming into the industry experiences something like I did.
Yeah.
I've thought about. I keep saying this, but I've thought about creating a YouTube and kind of just putting it out there, and then maybe.
How about a whole channel called Hannah's Place?
Yeah.
That's where it's free to do. And if you get 1,000 people to subscribe, you're a partner, and you can have a membership area. And that membership area, you could have, your hidden areas or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a way to do this as I think about it, spending basically no money at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will try to do my part in being transparent about.
Yeah. And I'll put out an idea. I'll write it up. I'll call it Hannah's idea. I'm not taking anything. I'll send you the draft before I do anything. How's that? So
and you even just having me on here to talk about this, because puts it out there too.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking people looking at it, and more will. I put this on one female bodybuilding group in Facebook. There's a bunch of different ones. And as I was thinking, God, how come I didn't? And I realized, oh, I'll put it over here. And I thought, well, I don't have enough time because I'm talking to you. So I was literally doing this on the fly, right? I was like, so.
If you don't mind, can I recommend the other women that I've talked to that were open with me about what they are going through and still going through? Some of them are still going through, they're in the midst of I didn't feel ready to talk about this until I was out of it,
Yeah.
And of course, I'm still dealing with a little bit of it, just the residual, probably lifestyle changes. I'll probably never be able to eat spicy food again, which I'm okay with. At least not until, my body's had a chance to fully heal. But for the most part, I'm out of it. I'm training normally again. The only thing that's not normal is that I can't just get back on what I was on. I'm slowly getting back on my TRT. Again, probably not going to go back up to what I was before on that. I'm probably going to lean more into things like growth hormone, things that aren't going to cause the, estrogen suppression, because I just can't keep up with the girls that can just run on no estrogen, right?
Yeah. How big do you want to be? Is there a model out there? Is there somebody that's out there active that you say, I want to look like her? Or because you look great. I mean, you have classic beauty and everything else, so it's
I don't really I try not to do that with other women because I'm never gonna look like anyone other than me. Right. But I still want to get as big as I can. That's still the goal. I still want to get as big as I can. That's not changed. And I'm a decent size. I'm 5'2", so I'm pretty sure I'm barely 5'2", right? And I stay around 155 to 160. So that's not really small. It's not huge, but it's not small.
How do your arms look like now? Wow, that's bigger than before.
That's the thing. is I measured them not that long ago. They've never been 15 inches. They're 15 inches now. So I do have more body fat on me,
Wow. Uh-huh.
right? So that could be playing a role, but I've never got, even in off seasons where I've had a decent amount of body fat, I've never had 15-inch arms. So I think I'm hoping that, you know, I have not given myself enough credit and felt like I needed more drugs than I actually did.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe my body can grow without as much, you know, because if I feel better with more estrogen, that means my training is going to be better, you know? So I'm just going to kind of lean into that, lean into the things that I know are going to keep me healthy. Um, and yeah.
You had an idea too, but I don't know if you meant to say you wanted other girls to come on and talk about it, which is fine, or you wanted to have a whole group session, which is fine. Was that what you were thinking, or?
I was thinking that I could just suggest to the couple girls that I've, been talking to, like, hey, get on this podcast, share your story,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
help other people getting into the industry. It's going to help people, more information is never worse, right?
And connect us. You connect us. I'd be happy to have them on,
Yeah.
and want to come back on and have a kind of a chaperone, I guess, because I don't know how you're great to talk, but I don't know how they are. Whatever. Up to you.
I mean, I'm pretty sure a couple of them have already been on podcasts before,
Okay.
maybe yours, but like similar ones.
Yeah.
Or at least something, like, because they're not small names, right? They're not nobodies in the industry.
Yeah.
So but just, the more we kind of talk about this stuff, because like even on the men's
I'd
side.
love to have them on because Teresa Avancic has been on here.
Yeah.
But she is the only one in a while because I hadn't focused. No, just a matter of, I mean, this universe I built has 26,000 videos. So it's something every day. There's an upload that goes every single day. So sometimes one, sometimes 8, sometimes 80.
Oh.
Yeah. Everything from the NFL draft to news to what the Senate's doing right now. We're a news outlet.
Yeah.
We're new. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm curious. I wanted to ask before the time remaining, because I see you have an hour and you got to do something else. But um, I mean, what is the situation in terms of shows and female bodybuilders? Is there still a dedicated female bodybuilding only show? Because it used to be the Dan, I think it was the Dan Tana, Florida, or is it Jan Dance, something like that, Central Florida? But yeah, is there now that it seems to me the model still, you have a male bodybuilder. I'm not a female. I'm not a male. I'm not in the male bodybuilding. Never have been. And I remember in 2005 I went and I was, who was it, that Dr. Jin. Oh, she's gonna see this and hit me in the jaw, but we were good friends at the time. So, but I said I don't want to see that show. That was in Las Vegas. But what's the situation for women?
I think the only female only show is Wings of Strength.
That's it.
I could be wrong. I think that's the only one.
Because what gets me is if there are more women, I've been so in the female bodybuilding for so long that I think I dated one who wrote at Cal, and around that time we had a conversation and it made me think about something, and we're still friends to this day, but we talk about a lot of stuff like her kids. But the whole point is age. But the whole point is we were. I noticed when Google first got going, you'd be hard pressed to find a woman showing her muscles in a picture.
Mm.
But now it's all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, And I can't think of anybody outside myself who actually has chronicled that.
Mm.
I mean, women, it's common for women to have muscle, right?
Mm.
And it's a cool thing. You know, it's the way it should be. Women should not be afraid to be strong. But why doesn't it transfer into money? And I'm like, you know, what's up with this?
I mean, there is some money in it, but it's usually in the forms of like OnlyFans, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. In compared to like mainstream sports, like the NFL, right? I don't know what the men's side of bodybuilding like looks like compared to something like that, but I feel like it's not as mainstream as like sports like football, even basketball.
See, I think like cheerleaders. Cheerleaders now are bodybuilders.
Mm.
A lot of female cheerleaders have the build to be a female bodybuilder like that.
Yeah.
Um, and yet there are contests all over the place. So I think it's just a matter. And of course, we have standard beauty contests, right?
Mm.
Um, are they on the wane? I don't know. Worldwide, I would say not. And I'm thinking worldwide. So it just takes the right person or persons to organize them. I've said this for now a long time, starting in 2005 to now. That's yee. Yeah, that's 20 years. Is that 20 years?
2005.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's 20 years. I've been saying it for 20 years. Holy crap, I've been saying it for 20 years. Oh, God. And nothing has changed. Well, you know, um, yeah, including the fact that I only talk. I haven't put together any site.
yeah.
I never saw myself as that kind of guy. But on the other hand, what's wrong with that? I don't know. See,
It
see, that
wouldn't
was what
hurt to try.
I'm
You know,
sorry.
it wouldn't hurt to try.
No, it wouldn't. You know, it would not. It wouldn't. Um, hmm. I'd have to do it in a way that solves a problem, and I think this might be that thing. You know.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, um, it's been an hour, a great hour. any closing thoughts to share?
Um, if you're a bodybuilder watching this and you've had issues, I feel like it'd be good for um, other athletes to just have that information on like what you go through, because we have so much information on training, nutrition, all the things, and it's like, but you can't find information when things go wrong or don't go right. And so
I'll
yeah.
make a page because I can make a page, an article on zinireport.com like that.
Mm.
Um, and that's the best one because it's general.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe do like a casting call where you're like, hey, looking for people that have had
yeah.
you know issues with bodybuilding, and not demonizing the sport, just
No, that's not my intent. Yeah, it's the opposite, right? Female bodybuilding in particular, because I don't, I think mainly because I'm a fan of female bodybuilders.
yeah.
You know, I just go with that.
Yeah.
Um, but my feeling also is that there's a lot more money for the men by far,
Hmm.
and people like, as much as I admire Arnold Schwarzenegger as having been the governor of California because he was a good governor, um, just Republicans only problem. But the point is, but I, too often the resources go to men,
Hmm.
and there's a lot more money for men, and men get prize money that basically go choke a horse. And I keep thinking, how come women don't get that, right? And that's been so I prefer to do it that way because that makes me then I feel like I'm really solving a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of men bodybuilding. I'm just never have been. This is not me. Hey, by the way, we've got Lean Body Coaching Online Weight Loss says I worked with Hannah when she was a figure competitor. She had the most amazing shoulder to back waist hip ratio I'd ever seen. I knew she was going places. That's really nice. What do you think about that, Hannah?
I think I know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a great person to know.
Yeah. See, you have people like that chiming in that be able to pump up the women as they explain what they're going through, right?
Mhm.
And you'd be into assisting on our little program. Aileen, it looks like he's been like, he goes, I'm a nutrition. I'm nutritionist.
Okay.
Hey, Keith, how are you? Nice to meet you. Welcome. Yes, man. So there you go.
Yeah.
And we started something.
I
And
hope so.
yeah, because it's great to get that that's called engagement, right? People are engaged. That's great, and they can have these conversations and everything else. And hey, how you doing? That's fantastic. Um, so yeah, now I'm jazzed.
But
Line them up, Hannah. Line them up.
I hope you do, that casting call, and
Yeah.
I will be documenting this at some point, because I'm I'm not giving up on competing.
No, don't.
Far from it.
Don't.
If anything, I feel like going through this is going to make me smarter and less likely to probably take risks that I would have before this, And that's another thing is I want to have a life after bodybuilding too. So I don't want to just, throw it all in and create a space where I can't get out of it if I wanted to. Not that I ever would, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have issues that I'm dealing with for the rest of my life, at least pain issues, right? Like I'm going to have things that I'm going to deal with for the rest of my life that I wouldn't have had I
you
not.
should be able to see a runway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can come in for landing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna do that, but where you can help me is by lining up the women you think I should talk to, who you know.
Absolutely.
And that way it's kind of like, who's this guy? Right. So,
yeah, because it would be great to have information, like if there was, say if there's a young woman, she decides she wants to bodybuild, right? And she gets with the coach and, she decides that she wants to go the year path and runs into an issue like mine. She starts having some issues, hormonal issues.
mm-hmm.
At least there would be somewhere where she could go and be like, okay, this seems like what it is.
Yep.
And this is what I have to do. I have to back off, switch compounds, whatever it is, whatever, she decides to do. At least there's that out there, Thankfully, I had a good specialist and a good coach that was like, this is it. This is what we need to do. Even though it lasted longer than I had wanted, something like that, it takes time to heal. But it could have been an issue that, I would have never figured out.
Mm-hmm.
My coach could have not thought to check my estrogen, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It went in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, thank you. And Hannah, don't go anywhere. Everybody, we'll be back later to talk about more Oakland athletics, moving to Las Vegas ballpark issues, the Senate, the NFL, and then as we go along further, we'll have Hannah's friends. I guess we can call them. Yeah, I like that. Hannah's house, Hannah's friends. There's something in there. Yeah. All right, folks. Please subscribe to Zenny62, and Hannah will be back too. And bookmark ZennyReport.com and Zenny62blog.com. All right. And Hannah, you don't have to move a muscle. That ends the stream.